They're very easy to get along with, they are surprisingly affordable, and they are well loved for good reason. There's just something about the Electro-Harmonix Pulsar. We have covered tremolo quite a bit on this channel. Amplitude, loudness, or gain, whatever you want to call it, goes up, goes down, repeats. And when I did my video on the Boss TR2, I was surprised at just how many people in the comments were like, yeah, that sounds really nice and everything, but I prefer the Electro-Harmonix Pulsar. And I can't disagree. This Pulsar right here was actually on the very first pedal board that I ever had. And then just a few weeks ago, I picked up this beauty. I am powerless to resist these slide-top wooden boxes. But I knew people would also want to know about the newer Pulsar offerings. There's a Nano and there's a Super. And I couldn't quite justify buying both, but the Super seems different enough where it would need its own whole video, so I went with the Nano. There's also the OG Pulsar, but $800, that ain't happening. Now, this big box right here is a good enough starting point. So let's start with the basics: rate and depth. The $800 Pulsar also had these two controls, plus the ability to go between a triangle and a square wave shape. This Pulsar has that, plus this third knob, which we can use to shape that shape. To me, that shape knob really opens up another dimension to what we can do on here. And you weren't hearing things. Moving this to the left did increase the rate quite a bit. Really beautiful sounding tremolo. It's got the basics covered, plus some room to find our own beat. But let's say your pedal board is a little cramped, or you don't feel like finding an adapter for this 1/8" power plug jack back here. This XO mid-size pedal takes everything we get here, freshens it up a bit, and gives us stereo outputs, hence the stereo Pulsar. It also fixes my one big complaint about the big box Pulsar, which is that this graphic up on the top here doesn't make sense. It should look like this, since it's adjusting the on to off ratio in square mode. So on the stereo Pulsar, there we go. We can put away the pitchforks now. Let's give this a quick listen, starting in mono and then flipping over to beautiful stereo. If you're enjoying this video on a mono device, that probably looked even weirder. Yeah, it's not just a tremolo, it's a panner. It's a bit of a spin and dimension when we've got this going into a stereo amp, and anywhere from trippy to disorienting when we're taking up the entire stereo spread. And we learned our lesson from the flying pan episode. In fact, in the opening jam for this, it was just too much, and I wound up using the directional mixer to limit the spread and keep it from going full back and forth. Put a pin in that because we're going to revisit the whole stereo thing in a bit. But the rate still goes all the way from incredibly slow to stupidly fast. And it still speeds up when you turn the shape knob to the left. I did an incredibly scientific test to verify that. And we could stop there, but we paid for 3 pedals. We're going to play with 3 pedals. The Nano Pulsar is basically the same as the XO Pulsar, but smaller and with a 4th knob for volume. The addition of a volume knob is really helpful when we're kicking on the tremolo for a part of the song where there's a different dynamic, or when we just feel like the effect is causing volume drop. The shape knob now also has a detent in the middle. It makes it a whole lot easier to find the actual center by feel, and the foot switch is now a soft touch, so we can engage it like this instead of like this. And it can still take and actually includes a battery. dig that. And it's still got that Pulsar sound. It's got that bloop or plop or whatever you want to call it. It's a very bouncy percussive tremolo, which I like. All right, so back to the panning, and I'm going to switch back to the XO size pedal because it's easier to see the knobs without my fingers getting in the way of everything. What's really interesting about the way this works in stereo is written right here in the manual. Maximum tremolo occurs when the depth knob, so this one right here, is set to approximately 2 o'clock. As the depth knob is turned above 2 o'clock, the tremolo begins to warp by modulating between positive and negative phase with a rhythmic pattern. To obtain maximum pan when using the stereo Pulsar in stereo, the optimum setting for the depth knob is at approximately 2 o'clock. All right, we get it, 2 o'clock. And for what it's worth, on the Nano Pulsar, the maximum pan tremolo zone happens at 1 o'clock, according to the instructions. So what happens when we hit that setting? Let's put on our science hats and feed this bad boy some pink noise and find out. As the depth is increased, the tremolo effect becomes more pronounced. It's taking a bigger bite out of each side. And at 2 o'clock, that's when the pulse is most perfectly defined and the offset between the left and the right channels is best lined up with that tremolo effect. And once we go past 2 o'clock, something interesting starts to happen. We start to get this little inverse tremolo thing going on. And there's also more overlap between the oscillations on the left and the right side, which we can see right here. But notice this when we zoom in. They're out of phase. Compare this with what happens at 2 o'clock. So we get a different type of effect that's a bit more choppy and dramatic. So there's definitely some phase cancellation dark magic going on here, and listening to static and looking at waveforms is fun and everything, but let's hear how that translates to an actual guitar signal. I think a case could be made that with that little bit of extra phasing going on, some wobble from adjusting the shape knob, and maybe like a slower rate that I couldn't quite seem to dial in here, that could get us into some rotary-esque territory. And this rate knob may be my only real complaint about the Pulsar tremolos. The range is just so wide that sometimes just nudging it a little bit sets it off like 20 beats per minute faster or slower. I would love a high-low range toggle switch or something, but I guess that's why the Super Pulsar exists. Tremolo is just one of those effects that I always forget to put on my board, but once it's on there, I'm always punching it in. And I have some more complex, advanced tremolos. I don't think there's anything tremolo or tremolo adjacent that the Empress Tremolo 2 can't do, and I'm just barely scratching the surface of what I can do with this Seymour Duncan shapeshifter over here. But for a what you see is what you hear tremolo, the Pulsar is up there with the Boss TR2, and that's saying a lot. Plus, Pulsar just sounds like the brand of a TV or radio that my dad would go and rescue from someone's curb in Spring Lake on bulk garbage day and then stay up all night cursing and replacing the fuses and soldering it and getting it running again, usually just to give it away. And I think that might explain a lot about my draw to and perspective on some of these pedals. Whatever it is about the Pulsar that kept you interested and watching up until the end of this video, there's a Pulsar out there waiting for you, and I put a link in the video description to help get you started. That also helps me out just a little bit, but I really enjoyed putting together this video. That opening demo jam, I went through a bunch of different guitars to find the right ones to get the sounds that I wanted, and then finding the right version of Pulsar to pair it with. That was a fun task. I also enjoyed just seeing like the evolution of this pedal over time and how they stayed true to that Pulsar sound. And it's probably not even the last tremolo video we'll see this year. Spoiler alert. I'll catch you on the next one.